Okay, we're recording. Before I start, I just want to let you know that I've been having some issues with my internet in the afternoons. I had someone come check it out yesterday, and he did what he could, but I was still having some issues yesterday afternoon. So I'm hoping, I did a test run yesterday and the recording turned out okay, even though those issues were still popping up. So if it gets really bad, which it hasn't really gotten very bad yet, but just know that I will be sending you a recording, and it should all be okay. If at any time you need to leave, that's fine. I am recording this, and I'm going to keep going anyway because I want to be able to send this out to people. So I'm doing this for myself as well. Um, Thank you so much for watching my webinar on leveling up your self-editing. My name is Lila, and I have been editing fiction manuscripts and screenplays for over 2 years now. My business actually is going to be 2 years old on Saturday, which is exciting for me. I started out proofreading my friends' screenplays, not because I knew a lot about screenplays, but because I was that friend known for being a good speller and being good with punctuation. So I got kind of into that, and I realized how much I enjoyed it. So I took a proofreading course, realized how much more there is to know, then joined the program at UC San Diego, their extended studies program for copy editing, and earned my certificate there. And at the same time, started my business and started accepting proofreading clients and then copy editing clients. And I've done some line editing since then and taken a class on line editing. And I am also still working with screenwriters who want, proofreading help and editing help, and helping newer screenwriters with screenplay format because it's so different from any other type of writing. So yeah, I love editing. I love my business, and I really, really enjoy helping writers feel more confident about their work, about their writing, about sharing their writing with the world, and about self-publishing. So yeah, it's just my passion. A lot of my clients are newer authors, and their goal is to be a full-time writer and spend their days writing, revising, selling their books, coming up with new story ideas. And I want to help as many people as possible achieve that dream, because that's something that I just love. I love seeing someone do something that they didn't think that they were going to be able to do, follow a dream that other people told them was impossible. And yeah, it lights me up. So I know that sounds a little corny, but it's true. And so I'm going to explain really quickly, in case you're not familiar with the term sample edit. A sample edit is when you give an editor a sample of your writing, and they edit it as though you were one of their clients. Then they send that sample back to you, and they also tell you what they can do for you, what they think your manuscript needs, how much it's going to cost, how long it's going to take them, and when they can fit you in on their schedule. So for obvious reasons, sample edits are great. But the best thing about sample edits is that you get to see if your writing style and that editor's editing style mesh well. So you can love an editor's social media content, you can love their prices, but if you get that sample edit back and it just doesn't feel right, maybe you feel like your voice has been edited out, or they don't seem to understand your project, then you don't want to be working with that editor. And it doesn't always mean that the editor is bad at what they do or that your writing is bad. It's just that it just wasn't a good fit. It's like dating. So that's why sample edits are so amazing. And I've done a lot of sample edits in the last 2 years. I actually really enjoy them because I feel like it gives me, besides working with my actual clients, doing sample edits gives me a chance to work on something new and get good practice with dealing with all sorts of writing styles. Of course, sometimes people say, no, I don't want to work with you. And of course, sometimes it's because we don't fit, or because I decide I wouldn't be a good fit for that writing. But a lot of the times when people say no to my proposal, it's because they'll say something like, I loved all your edits. I would really like to work with you. I just can't afford you. And that makes sense. It's uncomfortable and it makes me a little sad because of course, I want everyone who wants to work with me to be able to work with me. At the same time, I can't lower my prices because, I have to make a living. The reason editing can seem so expensive sometimes is because editors aren't just reading through your book. They're taking a lot of time to check a lot of things, and it takes many, many hours. So that wasn't the answer. And I've spent the last year feeling a little down about this situation because I just see it so often. And I understand a lot of these, my newer author clients are, or potential clients, this is their first book, or even their first two or three books. And often you're not making money on your books, maybe at that point yet, or you're just making enough to barely cover the costs, of your cover and your formatting and developmental editing, or a manuscript critique, or beta reading, or whatever. So I've given it a lot of thought this year, and I'm just like, how can I help solve this? I know I'm not going to come up with a perfect solution. There's no perfect solution to this issue, but I want to help. I want to improve the situation or give you a chance. And I came up with the idea of creating a course where authors who are willing to put in a little extra time and effort can go through this course and do their own self-edits. Of course, it's not going to be the same. It's not going to be as good as getting a full professional edit from an editor who's looking at your whole manuscript and spending hours and hours and hours, but it will catch what it needs to, and you can know that you did the best you could. And I just feel like it'll make such a difference. So I'm really excited to get this course out, and I really hope that it helps even just one person. I will feel so much better. And I'll discuss that course offering later on in the webinar. But first, I want to get to what you came here for, and that is how to level up your self-editing. So you should be able to see. Yeah, I think you can see I'm screen sharing. So I have never, I've done webinars before, but I've never been completely in charge of everything. I've never had to deal with the technological aspects of it. So if I screw up, I apologize. I'm doing the best I can right now. Okay, so 5 common mistakes made by fiction writers. These are mistakes that your readers will notice, and there are things that will cause your readers kind of to lose their faith in you as a good author who is creating quality entertainment for them. You want your readers to trust you, to trust that you have taken the time and are a good writer. And these things are things that line editors and copy editors and proofreaders look for. And if you're going to be doing your self-editing, you want to make sure that you're doing it. And either way, you should be working on this too, so that your editors aren't doing everything, because then they can catch more. So the first thing is using too much typographical emphasis or not following your genre's conventions for emphasis. So each genre is a little different. If you look at Japanese light novels or middle grade fiction or picture books, you're going to see actually really a lot of things like this: full sentences in all caps, multiple exclamation marks or question marks at the end of a sentence, lots of italics. That's common in those genres. In most other genres, it's kind of looked down upon a little bit. You want to, I understand that you want to emphasize things, but usually it's actually not necessary. And you don't want to make your writing look like amateur, right? It's okay to go out of the box a little bit, but especially during those first 3-ish books of yours, you are still usually building up a following, you're still building up experience. And so you want to play it a little safe during that time so that you, it's easier to build up a following. So those are the kinds of things you're going to want to watch out for. You're not going to want to italicize a word in every sentence, maybe 1 or 2 on a page. And you're going to want to pay attention to the genre you're writing in so that you know what's normal. The second thing is repetition. You probably know this. It's one of those things that's just very hard to, you can get rid of it and then you go through your manuscript again and you see a whole lot more repetition, and that's very normal. Every author has their pet words and phrases that they use. Even when we speak, like I'm going to watch the recording of this webinar in a few hours and I'm going to roll my eyes at how many times I said like, how many times I said we all do it. So it's normal, but you want to catch those things and change them or delete them. Also, I see a lot of repetition of action beats. So actions that characters take usually before, during, or after speech, like smiling, scratching their head, nodding, arching their eyebrows, common ones. And it's okay to use those, of course, but you want to make sure you're not overusing them because readers notice, and again, they get annoyed. Repetition annoys people. So you want to be fresh and new and catch that stuff. I also see repetition of character and setting descriptions. So like a character's icy blue eyes will be mentioned 15 different times throughout the manuscript. When, it gets old, it's like, okay, I know he has icy blue eyes, is there another way to describe that? And it's hard, I understand, but you want to be aware that your readers will notice it and will be annoyed by it. Describing a setting in a certain way or repeating that a setting is that room is just so cold. You don't really usually need to mention it several times. So there's always exceptions, but also a lot of writers, including myself, when I write my blog posts, I know that I have to watch out for my em dash use because I love em dashes and I have to make sure that I don't overuse them. So some writers, it's ellipses or semicolons or colon, whatever it is, you usually have something that you like. It's kind of like your crutch. You like to use it often. It works well for you. But if you do it too much, again, it's annoying. And then there's repetition of sentence structure. So I've seen writing where an author really enjoys using participial phrases at the beginning of their sentences. So like, having stayed up all night, Rebecca was exhausted at the end of her workday. Getting home, she was excited to have her dinner and hop into bed. hopping into bed, you know, so you repeat that. It's not the participial phrase at the beginning of your sentence that's wrong or annoying. It's the fact that if most of your sentences start that way, that's what gets annoying. There are so many ways to structure your sentences. And what matters is that you don't want to do it the same way every time. You want to make sure it's varied. Oh, another thing that I actually didn't put on here is sentence length. So sometimes you want to have a short sentence, sometimes you want to have longer, sometimes medium. If you're always doing the long sentences, that gets tedious. If you're always doing incredibly short sentences, your writing can seem a little choppy. Okay, number 3. And this is an important one because rarely in traditionally published books will you see incorrect dialogue punctuation. This is a big topic. There's so many little rules, and I'm not going to go into it completely here. That's for my course. That's definitely a big topic in my course. But yeah, if you're doing your own final edits, you want to make sure you're going through, you know the rules, and that you go through very carefully, because it's easy to miss those missing periods or the misplaced quotation marks. I notice it all the time in my second rounds of editing. I do 2 rounds on every client's manuscript, and I'll be like, how in the world did I miss that question mark outside of the quotation marks? I don't know, but it's easy to do. So here are some examples of correctly punctuated dialogue. When you have the beginning with your dialogue tag, you always need the comma after before the speech. Periods, exclamation marks, and question marks go inside of your quotation marks if it's part of the question that is being said aloud. If you have quotation marks that need to go inside of other quotation marks, you make those ones single. And you have to pay attention to, is have to be there part of what he's quoting? If so, you just have to be careful about where you put the question mark. So here it goes in the middle because have to be there was not a question, right, that he's quoting. I feel like I'm muddling this, but there are so many rules. M dashes is when you use when your character's speech is being cut off, and those go inside your quotation marks. And ellipses are used when your character's speech is trailing off, and you got to make sure you get the spacing right with those. Or if you're using any ending punctuation like question marks, you got to make sure that that's all in the right spots. Number 4 is not catching timeline issues and other inconsistencies. So a timeline issue would be something like your character is planning a birthday party for her best friend. And then 3 chapters later, it's her best friend's birthday again. So you can you have to pay attention to, and that's probably something that you would notice. But there are other things. If a character is traveling from California and they're driving to New York City, you're not going to have them arrive the next day. You want to make sure that it's a realistic amount of time. There are lots of timeline issues. If your character is pregnant and she has a normal pregnancy, you want to make sure that it's not 2 months later that she has the baby. Other inconsistencies are like if you spell a minor character's name differently in chapter 1 than you do in chapter 6. All of those little things add up and make your readers lose their trust in you again as the author. You get sometimes bad reviews, you get people stopping reading. Some readers just like cannot take that, if they notice little things like that, they're just like, I am done. But yeah, and the best way to keep track of those things is with a timeline. I use, when I'm editing for my clients, I have my own little timeline set up, like a calendar that I use. And in my course, I'm going to be teaching you how to create one of those, and then style sheets. And that's something else that I would be teaching in my course. And they're very helpful. Most editors use them, especially the timeline, especially for fiction. And then the fifth one is similar to inconsistencies. It's not fact checking. So you really, 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 if you're doing your own final edits, you need to make sure that you're checking all your facts. I know it's fiction, but your readers lose trust in you if you have a real city. I have a hard time spelling Missouri. So I check that word. So I recently did a manuscript, edited a manuscript with the main setting was in Missouri. And I had to check that so many times. But you don't want your readers to see that you don't even know how to spell Missouri. It's okay for you to not know how, but as the author, they expect you to have checked that. They expect you to put out good quality writing, right? So fact checking is very important. When I'm doing a client's manuscript and I come across a brand name, I check that. You would not believe how many times I'm like, I know how that brand name is spelled. I know where it's capitalized, but I'm just going to check just in case. And then I'm wrong. So it's very important. Copy editors and line editors, we don't know everything, but we know how to research, and we take the time to research. And if you're doing your own final edits, you're going to have to go through that tediousness. It can be a lot, but it'll be so worth it, because your readers will not get caught up on the inconsistencies or the incorrect things, the facts that are not true in real life, and it takes them out of the story, is what I'm trying to say. Then they stop paying attention to the story, and and then their mind is looking for more. And it's just, you want to fact check. Please make sure you're I've fact checked so many things. I'll fact check whether a car was, a certain car was available that year, what colors it came in that year, whether an animal was indigenous to a certain region of the world. Yeah, there's so many things. And that's, again, I'll have a checklist in my course for you to look over. Okay, and then I also improve your self-editing. These are things you can do that anytime you're writing, but especially if you're not hiring an editor for the final edits and you're doing your own, these are things you're going to want to, that will definitely help improve your self-editing. And the first one is to read well-written books within your genre. You want to, if you're writing a domestic thriller, you want to look up the top 10 lists. I'm sure there's in various places, there's top 10 lists for domestic thrillers in 2022. You want to make sure it's current. You want to make sure they're well reviewed. And you want to make sure they're in your genre. The more you do that, the more you're going to know what is popular right now, what's considered good. I know everyone has their own opinions, but like I said, during those first few books you write, you want to play it safer than you would once you have more experience or a larger following. And I have an opinion about when to read these books. So of course, before you start writing, if you're planning on writing a domestic thriller, you've probably read a lot of domestic thrillers and you probably like that genre. So that makes sense. You want to read before you start writing. my belief is that when you're doing the actual story creation during that time, I would take a break from reading, or well, especially from reading books in that genre, because it can do two things. It can cause you to unintentionally copy other authors. It can also kind of like create a block for you, because you're seeing all these things and you're like, I can't think of anything new. Like, I can't come up with anything. Everything's been done. Whereas if you take a break, then you can kind of give your mind a little time to relax and be inventive. And then I think that once you're in those final edits, the final edits, then that's the time to start reading those books in your genre again. Because like I said, you can see what the conventions are for comma use, italics use, all caps, all that kind of thing. You can kind of see, because commas aren't always like a right or wrong thing, right? Sometimes it's author preference or just the way it sounds. As long as you're not confusing your readers, you sometimes actually have a choice in whether you put a comma in a certain spot. So you want to know what's normal for your genre. And then this is the really important one. When you're working with professional editors, you have built-in breaks between your revisions. So you send it to your developmental editor. You're not looking, or you shouldn't be, making any changes to your manuscript while they have it. So it gives you your brain a break from, you're probably still thinking about your story, but it gives your brain a break from working on your story and reading your story. And then you give it to your line editor, and that built-in break again before you get it back and you make the revisions that you want to make, that they suggest, or anything like that. When you're doing your own final edits, if you're self-editing, if you're doing it all yourself, you want to make sure that you still include that space between rounds. You're not going to do your final edits all in one round. One, because you're not a copy editor or a line editor, and two, even I do 2 rounds on every client's manuscript, because I find so much in that second round. There's so much to watch out for and so much to catch and change that it's just impossible to do it all in one round, in my opinion. Sometimes editors will offer one round for price, to help authors who can't afford it. But I've tried the one round thing and I regretted it. So I always do 2 rounds, and I suggest that you do a few rounds and leave space. Now, you do want to get your book out there at some point. So 6 months between rounds might be a little much, asking a little much, but 2 weeks is not. That would be a great idea to leave at least 2 weeks between your rounds. Then you can come at it with fresh eyes. That's why, proofreaders and copy editors are so useful, and beta readers, because they're coming at your story with fresh eyes. They haven't been staring or going through that manuscript over and over and over, and it's easy for them to catch things that you don't see. But putting that space between your rounds improves your chances of catching things. Okay, this is the biggest one, and it's also probably the one that you've heard like so many times. So Lila, why are you telling me this? It's because it's so important, and it's so helpful. Read your manuscript out loud. When I do the second round of my clients' manuscripts, I always read it out loud. When you're reading out loud, you catch more typos because you're not skimming over it in your mind. When we read in our heads, we tend to do skimming, whereas when you're reading out loud, you're going to catch where you're missing that to, or that in, or the. or you're missing the S, you're going to catch that kind of thing. So reading your manuscript out, and also when you read your manuscript out loud, you hear which sentences sound like beautiful and which sentences just sound like odd and awkward or very confusing. And you don't always notice that when you're reading in your head. I love reading aloud a really well-written book, because it's like music to my ears. And yeah, it really shows you what where your writing is like beautiful and where it might need some help or some revision. And you can do I think Word, well, I know Word has the option to have it read aloud to you, and that can help. Personally, I think when you read it with your own voice, that's the best. If you don't have a voice, have someone read it to you. I mean, when it's in a human voice, the whole beautiful versus awkward sentence thing, that's more noticeable. Of course, I haven't working it in quite some time, so that might have improved. Maybe it's better than I remember it being. Okay, number 4. So most people have beta readers or critique partners, and of course they help you find plot holes. They help you, they tell you when they were bored, which characters they love and why, which characters they hate and why, when your characters' personalities don't shine through enough in their dialogue. They can tell you so much about that, things that help you with your storyline. However, beta readers are also great in the final edits stage because you can ask them to mark any sentences or paragraphs that they found that they had to reread because they were so confusing, or they just sounded really weird or off. It didn't sound right, just like in the reading aloud. In that same way, beta readers can help you. So when you give beta readers your list of questions that you'd like them to answer after reading or during reading, which you should give them a list, that way you can have them focus on the things you want them to pay attention to. Make sure one of those questions is, please mark any sentences, paragraphs, or sections that were confusing to you or sounded really weird. And then that's a great way for you to know what you need to revise, because sometimes you don't notice when it's your own writing, you don't notice little quirks in your writing that will bother your readers. So yeah, beta readers are so useful in so many ways. And one of them is your final edits. I know that it's a touchy subject among authors, like paying for a beta reader, but it can be useful because sometimes your beta readers, like if it's your mom, she will say, oh honey, it was just so great, the whole thing was great, I don't have any criticism. Or they'll be your friends who have busy lives and they're interested and they want to be supportive, but they never end up finishing reading your manuscript. And so it can be really frustrating. And I feel like if you do have beta reading, is usually when people do charge for it, it's pretty cheap. So if you can, you might want to consider that. But I also understand traditionally beta readers don't charge for their services. Critique partners are great too. So just want to mention that I do have that service. And but I did keep the price pretty low because I know that, not everyone agrees with that, but I've seen my author friends and my screenwriter friends ask people over and over to read their stuff and give good feedback and just not get it. And if you're paying someone, they're going to give you good feedback, hopefully. Okay. The last thing that you can do to improve your self-editing is to find other writers who are also in that final edits stage, whether they're working with editors or not, but especially if they're doing their own final edits, you guys can work together. You you can actually edit together, like virtually or in person. You can have the accountability, like, hey, we're going to get 30 pages done this week, no matter what. Or you can say things like, I just really can't decide if this comma should go here or not. Can you please give me your opinion? So yeah, community and accountability, especially if you're doing your own, is just so beneficial. And I mean, the reason not a lot of people are copy editors or proofreaders is they find it incredibly boring. It can be really, really boring for some people. I like it, but it's a very tedious job. And especially when you're doing your own manuscript, because you've gone over it maybe hundreds of times and you're just so sick of it and you want to be done. But if you have an accountability partner, then you can keep each other buoyed, so, okay. So with me to kind of like a live sample edit. I'm going to put the link for that as well. Okay. And how that will work is you will click on that link, you'll pick a date and a time that works for you, and then you'll send me 10 pages of your manuscript or any sample of writing that's yours that you would like me to go over. Before the meeting, I will review that and do on it. And then during the meeting, I'll give you all the advice I have for an hour. And we can talk about your dreams for what you want to accomplish. I can answer any questions and I'll tell you more about my course and to see if but it's okay if you end up not choosing to do the course, that's fine. I'm offering these one-on-one sample edits because I, again, want to help you get your books out there in good formatting. So yeah, I hope that you enjoyed this and thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach me at any of these places. I'm Labine_editorial on Instagram. And there's my email, and my website has an inquiry form that you can fill out to ask questions or to ask for a sample edit. And then, of course, that link there in the chat will take you to a spot where you can pick a date and time for a free one-on-one hour-long live sample edit. And I would love to speak with you. I'm really excited to try these out. I haven't done them before, and but I have done a lot of sample edits and I really enjoy them. So I just want to thank you once more for coming and watching, and I hope you got some value out of this. And I wish you all the luck on your writing. Now I have to figure out how to stop recording. Okay, bye.